During the past 20 years, I have never worked for the government of Namibia, yet I often found myself working with a government ministry or department to achieve national objectives. In 1996, the Minister of Trade and Industry offered me the job of understudy to the CEO at the offshore development company. The ODC was a 75% private-owned company, with the government owning the rest of the shares. The aim of the company is to monitor, regulate, and promote the Namibia Export Processing Zones, or EPZ. The EPZs are industrial parks for companies that manufacture and export their products outside Namibia and the Southern Africa Customs Union. The primary incentive for companies to invest in these zones is the zero tax rates that are applied. One of my primary tasks was being the secretary to the EPZ committee. The committee consisted of the Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister of Finance, and the Governor of the Bank of Namibia. Various other government departments and state-owned enterprises were represented on the committee, for example, Home Affairs, Finance, Customs, Local Government, Namport, Nampower, etc. This was the first time that I was involved in working with various different institutions, and I struggled in the beginning as there was a deadline. The EPZ committee promised an answer on all applications within 1 month. It was sometimes extremely frustrating to work with the various people, not because of the individuals involved or even the bureaucratic rules, but rather the lack of information on a specific issue would have me running back and forth. At this time, the internet was starting to take off, also in Namibia, and I developed a website for the ODC and investment in Namibia in general. I loaded all information received from the various departments and institutions, including application forms, onto the website and had them readily available the next time they were requested. This not only made my life much easier, it also allowed anyone from anywhere in the world to access the information they needed for their application. There was also a secure section for confidential information used by the Secretariat. It has been a very saddening experience lately to see the state of website of the various ministries and government organizations. It seems that a website is developed by external service providers and then deteriorates until the next time a tender is given out for the job. The government must have a policy on creating an internet presence and ensuring the appropriate skills are available within the government structures to update and maintain these repositories of information. This was one of the hardest sections in the book to write. My first consideration is that only the President of Namibia has the right to decide on how the executive branch of Namibia shall operate. Is it therefore not disrespectful of me to suppose that I can suggest a plan of action to our head of state? After all, according to Article 32, Sub-Article 3 of the Constitution, the President shall preside over meetings of the Cabinet and shall have the power, subject to this Constitution, to establish and dissolve such government departments and ministries as the President may at any time consider to be necessary or expedient for the good government of Namibia. Appoint the following persons: the Prime Minister, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, the Attorney General, the Director General of Planning, any other person or persons who are required by any other provision of this Constitution or any other law to be appointed by the President. Thus, I do not present a case for how the Cabinet should be structured, but rather concentrate on the individual tasks of departments. In other words, the discretion of which ministers should be appointed is not for my efforts, but rather only the makeup of the individual departments into ministries that could combine certain tasks. It is easy to be critical of the government and the bureaucracy of the state. However, it is not always easy to provide an alternative plan or structure. In the following section, I suggest not only how government ministries and departments can be restructured based on my perception of economic and political changes, but also changing social needs and new technologies available. The office of the President shall include a Minister of Presidential Affairs. The following shall resort under the office of the Minister of Presidential Affairs: the Auditor General, the Director General of the Central Intelligence Service, and the Director General of Planning. Each of the above mentioned shall have its own administration with its own permanent secretary. The Presidential Economic Advisory Council will also be housed in the office of the President. It shall consist of 5 individuals recognized for their knowledge and experience in business. The chairperson of the PAs shall also be one of the presidential appointments to the National Assembly. The office of the Prime Minister shall be the leader of government business in Parliament. It shall coordinate the work of the Cabinet and shall advise and assist the President in the execution of the functions of government. The office of the Prime Minister shall be responsible for the public service, which includes government employees. It shall represent the government as employer in labour relations and shall be responsible for the public service information technology management. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs shall be responsible for interaction with other nations, regional and international organizations. It shall be responsible for trade policy and external trade relations. Moreover, it shall be responsible for the promotion of investment opportunities in Namibia, specifically foreign direct investment. Finally, the ministry shall be responsible for the promotion of Namibia as a tourist destination. Shall be responsible for the establishment and maintenance of a central register. This shall include register of residence, register of marriage contracts, register of business, register of professions, register of property ownership, including land and vehicles, register of licenses for natural resources and utilization, register of trademarks, patents and copyright, register of external trade, register of court sentences, proceedings and declarations, register of bankruptcies and insolvencies, register of other legal entities such as non-government organizations, religious organizations, and welfare organizations, shall make available to every resident any and all information recorded and stored concerning that resident, shall be responsible for the control of immigration points and border posts, shall be responsible to maintain law and order in the country, including the police. The ministry shall be responsible for the following economic activities with the objective of securing economic growth, prosperity, and a life of human dignity for all Namibians: agriculture, energy, fisheries and marine resources, forestry, mining, tourism and water. Shall coordinate the sustainable management of Namibia's resources, shall be responsible for the granting of licenses and other administration tasks in the aforementioned economic activities, shall coordinate land reform and land resettlement policies and programs. shall be responsible for state income and expenditure, shall collect all monies payable to the state in the form of taxes, duties, license fees, or any other state income. The Ministry of Works, Transport and State-owned enterprises shall be responsible for government-owned properties and government-owned businesses, also known as state-owned enterprises. Additionally, it shall oversee transport, which includes aviation, maritime affairs, road, and rail. Furthermore, this ministry shall act as a project management unit for all infrastructure development and maintenance. The Ministry of Labour Relations shall be responsible for the tripartite relationship with employees, employers, and the state. In the case of state employees, the Office of the Prime Minister shall represent the employer. Moreover, this ministry shall maintain a database of occupations and work closely with the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Education to provide matching services for skills. The Ministry of Trade and Industry shall be responsible for several key areas. These include consumer protection, industrial development, export development, and entrepreneurship. Shall be responsible for primary, secondary, and tertiary education. Shall be responsible for all institutions of learning, both private sector and state. This will include registration and standards of education provided. Shall be responsible for disseminating information on the government, its structure and programs. Shall be responsible for the National Library and Information Services. Shall oversee developments in ICT for the development of Namibia. Shall create and support community centres at all regional and constituency levels. These community centres shall provide information services through broadcasting, print and internet technologies. Shall regulate the telecommunications and broadcasting sector. Shall regulate the Electronic Transactions Act, including privacy and data protection, and shall be the custodian of the Access to Information Act. The Ministry of Justice. The administrative functions of the judiciary will be done by a department that is headed by a Director General appointed by the Parliament of Namibia. Shall consist of the following: the Office of the Attorney General, the Office of the Prosecutor General, and the Office of the Ombudsman. The Ministry of Health and Social Services shall provide clinics, hospitals, and health services to all residents. It shall oversee the National Social Security and National Pension Scheme. Additionally, it shall be responsible for the payments of old age pensions, war veterans' allowances, and disability grants. The Ministry of Gender Equality and Child Welfare shall be responsible for the equality of women in all areas of government. Furthermore, it shall oversee all areas of child welfare from birth through to primary education. The Ministry of Regional and Local Government shall assist and regulate the activities of the regional and local governments. It shall also be responsible for the program of decentralization. Moreover, it shall provide administrative support services to regional and constituency level officers. Shall be responsible for the defense of the country from external threats, and shall be responsible for the protection of our natural resources on land or in the sea. Shall be responsible for carrying out the sentences of the courts, and shall identify work programs for the prisoners sentenced to forced labor. shall oversee the Directorate of Youth and the National Youth Council, and shall be responsible for sport and culture in Namibia. Anti-Corruption Commission. Corruption is bad for our country. It prevents growth by diverting funds, scaring foreign investment, and encourages educated citizens to leave so as not to be also considered part of a corrupt state. The corrupt allocation of natural resources will lead to the depletion of these resources to the detriment of all citizens. It breaks the trust between the people and its government. Most importantly, it puts in doubt the ability of the government, civil service, and all politicians. Study proves corruption is less profitable. Not only do you get punished by God for corruption, now we know you get punished on earth too, said one of the readers of a recent study on corruption. A recent study on ethics in business shows that companies that have high ethical standards and behavior are more profitable than their competitors. Suppliers and customers alike prefer working with a company where the rules are clear and business decisions cannot be influenced by employees. Most politicians bend the laws of the land and steal money or solicit bribes because they need the funds to support networks of patronage. Others do it in order to reward their nearest and dearest or to maintain a lavish lifestyle when their political lives are over. A solution is to ensure that upon retirement, a politician is able to sustain their lifestyle through a regular pension payout. Of course, effective policing and long jail terms also provide deterrence. Effective program against corruption. To be effective, an anti-corruption program must 1. Persecute corrupt, high-profile public officials in public and private institutions, and even multinational companies, the so-called big fish. 2. Investment in educating the public and government officials to encourage civic pride. 3. Liberalizing and deregulating the economy. The less red tape or licensing procedures, the less the likelihood of corrupt practices to facilitate business. 4. Strengthening of the institutions such as the Anti-Corruption Commission, police, customs, the courts, and the tax authorities. The best solution to corruption remains a policy of no secrets. This means free, accessible, and available information circulated and discussed by opposition parties, free press, trade unions, business organizations, and NGOs. Without this, the fight against corruption is doomed to failure. Government service directories. The government needs 2 methods of information provision to its citizens. There is the information created through the work of the state that needs to be disseminated among the society. This is the push strategy whereby government must ensure the information reaches all corners of the country. The second method is to provide the infrastructure for the citizens to query the information they require. This pull strategy must provide for community centers, telecenters, etc. that enable the citizen to correctly identify the information they need. An example is crop prices for commodities or applications for identity documents. A way to ensure better service provision and usage by our people is to provide a local government service directory. Here we have a government ministry directory. The information will be on a regional and constituency level, indicating the services provided by all government institutions with their full addresses and the person responsible. This includes all staff members in the ministry, their department job title, and a brief description of their duties. Contact details will also be included. E-governance in Namibia. Electronic governance is managed by the Office of the Prime Minister, which is the lead institution in e-government. They released the e-governance policy for the public service of Namibia. That document uses the definition of e-governance from the Council of Ministers of the European Union, technologies in public administrations combined with organizational change and new skills in order to improve public and democratic processes and strengthen support for public policies. Unfortunately, once again in Namibia, we have a well-designed national policy that recognizes the technological advances in the country, but implementation seems to be holding us back. This can especially be seen in the websites of government. Many have very little interactivity, like downloading forms, and often are badly neglected and not updated. In Namibia, we have the opportunity to be a leading example in this field, but sadly there are no champions within government driving this program.